Hello and welcome. I'm Shawn Briggs, and today I'm going to be giving you guys an introduction into After Effects. So let's start by opening up After Effects. So first what you want to do is click on the After Effects tab. It is an Adobe application, so you get it with the Creative Cloud, the Creative Suite, whatever they call it now. So on this page, initially, you don't need to just go ahead and click New Project. You can just close that because you've already got After Effects here. Anything you do in here is going to be what you start with. Of course, if you wanted to save and make a new project, you can go to Save As. And we're just going to call this one After Effects Introduction. Save. And here you go, your first save. Now, how do we import and how do we start a new sequence, or as we call it in After Effects, a composition? A good way to look at After Effects is that it's basically Photoshop for video. So you have all these tools and you can edit video clips and change them in certain ways and add certain effects, but you can also do things like motion graphics and character animation and typography animation. And you can do some 3D animation off the bat, but to do more extensive stuff, you generally have to buy some of the plugins online that then allow you to implement more kind of extensive 3D animation. But today I'm just going to give you the lowdown on some of the simpler tools just to get you started, some of the basic stuff just to get you on your way. So let's just have a look at After Effects for the moment. This window here, highlighted in blue, this is where your preview is going to be of what it is that you are creating. So you can think of this is like where your palette is going to be, of where you're going to apply all your paints and all your pictures and where you're going to make everything. Down here, at the moment it's the render queue, so this is where you would export from, which I'll show you later. But this is also, because you can get a series of tabs, this sort of layout is actually what the timeline will look like. So this is where all of your layers and all your videos are going to be located, where you're going to see them in a way whereby you can see how long your video clips are and how they're layered up in terms of what appears first. For example, whatever's on the top layer takes precedent over everything below it in terms of visibility. But we can go more into depth with that later. Over here, this is where all of your assets are going to be. And what I mean by assets is that I mean things like where your footage is going to be in terms of a file structure. So this is where you'll drag and drop things from onto your timeline to apply it to your composition. Also on this panel is you also have effect controls, and what this window allows you to do is that any effects that you apply to a layer down here will, when you have it highlighted, it will appear in this window here specifically for the clip that you have highlighted. And you'll have lots of dials and numbers and equations that you can adjust to get certain looks or effects or certain contrasts of how much of the effect that you want and things like that. All the adjustments happen in this panel here. And coming all the way over to this side, here you just have lots of drop-down tabs. Like the info is just the RGBA. I have no idea what this does, never used it in my life. So you've got just like things like your audio, so you can see your audio levels and you can adjust. You've got effects and presets. This will be very useful. Has lots of effects and presets that you can use and apply to your video clips and to your timeline to get certain effects. Animation presets is very good because in here, I use it all the time. You've got lots of text animations. So if you just want a really simple like transition in, you just go to animate in, and you've got all of these different animate ins for your text, and you can adjust those as and when you like. So besides effects, you've also got align. This is very useful for making sure that things are central in your composition, whether that be central vertically or horizontally or both. It also allows you to align things to the left or right or to the top or the bottom, depending on your preference and how creatively you would like to organize things. Character, this is for your text. So this is just like in Word document where you can just like adjust your font, adjust the size of your font, boldness, italic, things like that. Color as well. And this one over here, this is stroke. So what you do is if you assign a color to that, this produces an outline to the text. So if I click OK, if I was to make any text with this now, it would be white, but with a red outline, and you can adjust the thickness of that outline just with this here. Set the stroke width, as you can see. Higher the number, the thicker it will be. Lesser the number, the thinner it will be. And if you don't want it, then you can just click this little no stroke color here and it will just get rid of that for you. So now it will just be a block white without the outline. You've also got paragraph, so similar to Word document again, just simple, like you want it starting from the left to right, you want it to be a centered text, so on. And tracker, this is a really useful tool. We'll likely be doing a video on this in the future. This is for tracking certain assets to video footage that you've recorded, and that is what this panel is very useful for. There's different ways of tracking things. You've got camera track, warp stabilizer, track motion. So what I always do first, so in project, this is where all your folders and all of your assets are going to be located. If you're working at a production company or you're just working in a company and you're going to be using these files all the time, or somebody else might want to make use of this, then making a nice folder structure is a really good way to make it accessible for anyone else who would like to pick it up and start using it. If we just click this little create new folder icon here, make a new folder, and I'll name it assets. I name it assets because this is where all of our videos, all of our pictures, all of our, you know, if you're given a logo by a company, you would put it in here. So that's where all of that stuff goes. And then after that, I'll go comps, because comps is where all of our composition timelines are going to go. Whenever you make a new comp, it generates like another clip, which is what you double click to then open a timeline down here. So we just make a folder for those to keep it all tidy. And then if you have some sound effects, I'm not saying we will for this video, but it's always good just to have folders just in case. And pre-comps. Pre-comps is something I'll go over in a later video. But basically what pre-comps are, just to give you a little bit of an overview, is that you can have compositions within compositions. It's essentially like when you make a composition and it is in your folders, it essentially becomes like a video clip. So you can drag and drop them into each other, and it's like compception. It's like comps within comps, within comps, within comps, if you like. But we'll keep it simple today. So now that I've done that, I just want to bring some footage in. So I've pre-made a folder already. I'll just go grab that now. Just gonna lasso select all of those and I simply just drag and drop them. It'll take a second for them to load up. There we go, here they are. Now to make a composition, all you really have to do is just grab a clip, bring it over here or over here, doesn't really matter which, and then drop it. And now you've made your first composition, and this composition is mimicking the formatting of this video clip. So if we want to check that, we just make sure that our tab for this composition is highlighted here, and go to composition, composition settings. And now you can see that it's named after our Epic Pigeon. So the first thing we might want to do is just call it AE for After Effects, introduction _ version 1. And we can see that it's a 1080p HD video composition setting. And down here we've got our duration. We can change that if we like. This is the duration of the video clip, so it really is mimicking the video clip in every aspect. So we just, if I just want to make it 10 seconds, so I'll just delete those and type them in with my keyboard. This resolution here, this is just what your preview is going to be. So this isn't what it's actually going to be exported out as. This is just how you're going to preview it so that your computer can deal with the high information rate that the files have in terms of file size. If you want to make it full, you can. It just means that you can see it in full quality as you're working with it, but that might slow your computer down. So let's leave it at 1/4 just for us. We've got a frame rate of 25 seconds. This is a slow motion clip, but it was conformed, when it was recorded, it was conformed to 25p, so it just plays as 25p in slow motion. Click OK. Now you can see that our timeline is 10 seconds. All the way over here you can see each of the seconds. If you want to zoom in, you've got this little slider here, so you can just slide in, see more precisely. It goes all the way down to the individual frames. This is in case you want to be fine-tuning anything, and you can zoom all the way out. So the first thing I want to do is I want to find the juicy spot of the clip that I I really like, which is the part where we just see the pigeon kind of just walking across this railing it's standing on. So I just like drag this across, you just grab it, just slide it across until you get to the point that you want. Nearly there now. And I want the part where he's just about to turn. So I just leave it there, and then here we go. We've got our walking pigeon. This was shot on the Olympus OMD EM Mark III. Lovely camera, image stabilization was fantastic, slow motion equally fantastic. So what can we do with this clip now? Well, what we can do is that I just want to show you this little drop down over here. So we've got this drop down, we've got audio, where we can control our audio levels. We can also apply some audio effects, and they might appear in here. I'm not sure if they do. It's very rarely that I do any audio editing in After Effects. It's mainly just for the visuals. And if we go to transform, we've got all these transform tools. So we've got anchor point, we've got position, we've got scale, rotation, and opacity. Opacity affects the visibility, rotation, self-explanatory, it spins it. Scale, you can scale it up and down. I'm just using Control Z to put it back. If you unselect this little chain tool here, you can move each of these scale axes individually, so you can stretch and you can squish your images, but I don't want to distort the image, so I'll just leave it the same, and I'll make sure that chain link is enabled. Position is X and Y, so you've got X here and Y here. You can also fine-tune the numbers just by up and down on your keyboard using the arrow keys, just to, if you want to be very accurate. And if you hold shift when you do that, it goes up in increments of 10 instead of increments of 1 pixel, so that's really handy to have. Now your anchor point, which is this little crosshair in the center here, that's the point whereby your image is going to rotate. So if you say want it to rotate from the center, well, have it in the center. And if you use this pan behind tool up here, you can select that, and then you can drag this anchor point anywhere you like on the screen. If I drag it down to this bottom corner over here, and then use the rotation tool, you'll see that it then rotates from that point. Very handy, and gives you a lot of creative control over the way that your pictures behave when you're using these transform functions. Now, what I want to do is I want to add another clip to my timeline. So I'm just going to go up here and go ahead, and I'm just going to look for the majestic horse shot that I like. And instead of just dragging it on top this time, I'm going to double click on it. And as you can see, it's revealed this new tab in our compositions window called footage, which is the clip itself. This is where we can select exactly the point, the in and out points for the clip as we would like to apply it to the timeline. So I want to go for this part where the horse is right there, Amy's on the front of frame taking a picture, and eventually the horse sees us and then approaches us. So now that I've found like the in point that I'm happy with, this little button here is our in point to current time marker. So if I just go ahead and click that, as you can see the grey area has now isolated in on there. Now I want to select my out point. So I'm just going to go ahead slightly until I see that the horse is on the approach. I did run away as the horse got too close. I don't do very well with large mammals, but Amy was there to protect me, so it was all good. So if I have my set out point marker now, I can set that. So to bring that in, we've got ripple insert edit, which will, if you just look at my timeline, will split it so that it cuts there. As you can see, it's deleted the after part of my clip here. It does keep a tidier timeline, but just for the sake of editing, if I just go back to the footage tab up here, I just want it to overlay. This will put it in the layer above, but it won't erase anything below it. So all of that footage is still there of my pigeon. So if I just hit my eyepiece, that makes it so I can see right through it. And then there's my horse back. And as you can see, this is a 4K clip of the horse as well. So if you hit Control-Alt-F, that will snap it to the resolution that you have your composition set to. It also recenters things if you need it to do that. It's a very handy tool to have. Obviously, you can just grab and scale it like you would in any other editing software like Photoshop. So it's very user-friendly. And yeah, with the horse being on the top layer, that is what's taking precedent over the pigeon for now. And if I just jump into this clip, if I just hit this arrow over here, now we've got opacity, and opacity is basically, well, you probably know what opacity is. You just drag the percentage down, and the lower the percentage, the more invisible it becomes, which means it will reveal what's below it. So here we can see our pigeon again. Also, an amazing tool for creating some cool effects is making use of these stopwatches. Now what these stopwatches do is that when you select one, it goes blue and it creates these little diamonds on your timeline in accordance on the timeline to the transform tool that you're affecting. And what this means is that this is now point A. This is point A. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to drag this little diamond, I'm going to pop it over here, because now what this is a keyframe. And what that means is that if I say that this is point A, if I make another one over here, the keyframes will always happen where your cursor is, by the way, and I drag this all the way back up to 100, it will automatically create me a new keyframe. And what we can call this one is point B. Now what these keyframes always do is they move from point A to point B all the time. So what we've just done is we've just created a very basic fade, just as an example. And you can do this also with, if I just select scale and I move this to the start, and I just go all the way to the end of my timeline, and I just go to scale and I just like hit up, like if I just scale it up by say 3 or 4, now what I've created a fade, and I've put a zoom on our majestic beast. I find zooms are so good. It's very good for drawing interest to a center of frame or anywhere you like. Say I wanted to draw it to the position of the horse's head. All I have to do, if I just go to position and then I go to the end of my timeline, all I have to do is just drag this over slightly, maybe just move it up a little bit because the horse's head is just below the center of frame. And now we've got this zoom going on, but it's zooming right on the center of the horse's head. I find those kind of tools can be very useful for creating tension or making your audience feel a certain way. Now these are very basic things I've just shown you. Obviously you can do things like you can create text graphics and things like that. If I just right click on the timeline as well, it's as user friendly as that. And I just go to new and I select text. Then I can just type my name, not Shawn, but Shawn. You change your font to whatever you like. Comic Sans, personal favorite. I can italicize that, I can take the bold off, I can make it so it's all capitals just by using these tools down here. I can even do something like this, it's a bit weird, or if I just select all that. Hey, and I can move this around. It's got all of the same transform tools as a normal video clip does. So whatever I just did with these video clips, you can also do with your text layers. And it all works the same. If I put this below the horse, it'll only appear on the pigeon and then the horse will fade over the top of it. It's all as simple as that. I hate the look of that. That much better. Give it an outline. If I just give it like a, I don't know, like a blue outline, a lovely blue. I love blue. And then just increase the strokes. That's what the strokes look like. And of course, if you want to zoom in because you really want to get into the detail, I've got this at a quarter resolution here. At quarter, you've got this little hand tool. So if you zoomed in, you want to look at something specific, you can like grab your screen and move it around. If you want it to snap back to the center, if I just go back to my selection tool, here we got 50% magnification. If you drop this down, you can go fit up to 100%. That just puts it back to normal so you can see the whole thing. You can also like, this is like a modular application as well. So what that means is that you can move all these panels around to suit your needs. If I want to put my effects controls over here, I can. You literally just grab the tab where it says effect control. It's the same for all of them, just drag and drop them wherever you need them. If you want them to tab next to each other, it's this blue line where it goes next to it. If you want it to like be a different panel next to it, just so that it looks like this, drag and drop, there you go. And it really is simple as that. If you want some more space for your preview, you can. and vice versa. And you've also, down here, you've got your choose grid and guide options. Here you've got your title action safe grid, so you can see what's action and title safe. You've also got proportional grid, which can be useful for when you're trying to measure proportionally how things look on screen. And say we now got this beautiful video that's just got my name over it with this pigeon and this majestic horse. Now we want to export it. So what we're going to do is we're just going to make sure that this tab is selected, and we're just going to go to composition, and then we're going to go to add to render queue. This is where we export from. You can also hit Control M, and that takes us to our render queue, which was the first tab we had at the start. And now this is the name of our composition, and output to is the name of it. So this is where you say where you would like it to go, and then I can name it whatever I want, but I think I'll keep it like this. So as you can see, it's an AVI clip now. That's not ideal. I'd much prefer it to be a .mov, because this is going to be going into my masterpiece of a Premiere project. Well, as you can tell, it is already a masterpiece, but it's going to add to the mastery of my masterpiece. So we're just going to go to lossless over here. This is our output module, and this is where all of our settings are. So I'm just going to set this to a QuickTime. As you can see it here, it says animation. Now that means it's going to be rendering at a very high bit depth. That's not ideal because we're already working with video clips that have a lot of detail that it needs to cover. If you were just working with text tools and solid layers and shape layers, then that would be a lot more beneficial because it would retain all that quality. But with video, it's just not necessary. It's overkill. It's a lot of processing power. So we just click on the format button, and then we go to our video codec, and let's just make it an Apple ProRes 422. That will compress it nicely for us, but not so big that it's unworkable for our Premiere Pro project. And then down here you've got your audio options. The video clips do have audio, so I will leave the audio on. It's 16-bit right now. If you want to boost up to 32-bit to retain as much quality as you can, then that's fine. Then you just click OK when that's all ready. And then it's just as simple as hit render. Here we go. Oh, this is very fast actually. It's not always this fast when it renders, by the way. I've got a pretty good computer. If you're working on computers that aren't as fast, this could take ages. And then that's After Effects. You've made your first project. Well done, you. So that is my basic introduction into After Effects. I hope that was useful to some of you. There's a lot of tools to take in. The best thing you can do is to really get After Effects installed and start playing with it. That's how I learn. I'm completely self-taught, so you definitely can pick it up and learn it. It can take a while. Hopefully my tutorial can speed that along for you. There are a lot of features within After Effects that I will be covering in future videos, so make sure you subscribe for those. And if you like this video, then please leave a like. And if you've got any ideas for anything that you'd like us to cover in After Effects, then please leave it in the comments section below. As always, thank you for watching. I've been Shawn Briggs. Goodbye.